program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195 Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, talk that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you're getting on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Also, you can follow our live video stream of this program on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel on Vaughan Radio. When you get there, click subscribe. Thank you all again. Your voice in the community, thought that get results. Tonight, the Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table. Let me say good evening to all those who are listening and viewing this edition of the Let's Talk program tonight. Let me take this opportunity, Webbo, to offer my condolences to all those families who are in mourning tonight. I hope that they would be able to remember their family, their loved one, their colleague, their friend with fond memories. I want to, Webbo, take this opportunity to say to all those who are celebrating tonight, whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some accomplishment in their life, I hope that they are having a wonderful evening and enjoying themselves tonight. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I am indeed looking forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you so much.
Conrad Niall Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my colleagues around the table and to everyone in tune to this program by the various means appropriate today. My friends in the international circle, I always like to say hello to you guys in Toronto and in Connecticut. And, I want to say a very special good evening also to the people of Nevis, Uali. But once again, we gather to discuss the issues affecting the people, home and abroad, near and far. Webbo, you know how much I like to be a part of these conversations, and so I want to thank you once again for having me tonight.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to those who listen to us on the World Wide Web, via Facebook, YouTube, as the case might be. Good evening to the gracious people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And of course, we are here this evening to discuss the issues. And without further ado, let me just give a shout out to the program that recognizes men of worth, men of performance, men of certain magnitude, as the case might be. So based on what occurred, I did not get an opportunity to view that particular program online, as the case might be, but at the same time it is a good program with reference to identifying men of worth, men of purpose, and hence congratulations to the person who brought the idea to the fore, and congratulations to those recipients, the men of worth, men of performance. Webbo,
if you would allow me, I want to join with Mr. Stanley to offer congratulations to these 19 very distinguished gentlemen here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. On Saturday evening, there at the Malcolm Gisha Recreational Park, we had the International Men's Day National Award Ceremony under the theme Men's Health Matters. And we saw Webbo, some 19 gentlemen from the Federation here in St. Kitts and Nevis receiving an award in various areas. Community activism, creative economy, first response, entrepreneurship, sustainable development, education, health and human services. And we also saw some special awards, Legacy Award. We had 2 gentlemen for the Legacy Award. We also had the Premier Award, the Prime Minister Award, and the Regional Award. But I thought it was a very high-class event, and I think that the idea is to try and put the focus on what I would call ordinary folk in our community, some unsung heroes, because I believe that their example over the years have been very good examples, and I think that it's an initiative that I feel will go a long way in encouraging our young men, our boys, to aim and aspire for something in our community. Like I said, these are persons who, in my mind, go about their business, go about what they have to do in our community every single day. And I thought that it was very, very good to see that the social services department would have recognized these very distinguished gentlemen, and it was done at a federal level. We had in attendance the Governor General and the Deputy Governor General, also the Prime Minister and the Acting Premier, and other members of the Nevis Island government, including myself. So I thought, Webbo, that it was a very good initiative. I thought that it put the spotlight not necessarily so much on recognizing our men, which was basically a good thing, but that men's health matters. It has traditionally been said that men don't really look after themselves as good as they ought to. And I thought that the idea of recognizing the men and encouraging them to take charge of their health and how they conduct themselves, what they eat and so on, was a very good initiative. And this was the first. It was held here on Nevis for the first time, and like I said, it was at a federal level, and next year hoping that it will be held on the sister island of St. Kitts. So I want to congratulate all of the men, the organizers, and all of those who receive awards, Webbo.
Well, I would also go a little further in terms of zeroing in on the mental facet of men's health, because based on what's happening regarding the murders, 2 murders in K1, it tells you that there's something wrong with those people who continue to perpetrate these heinous crimes, and hence mental health is critically important with regard to young men who go about taking one another's lives. So mental health is of utmost importance with regard to the zero in on the health aspect of men's health. Critically, the young men.
Let me join you guys in congratulating the organizers of the event. I think it was a worthwhile event. I think it's good to highlight and to pay homage to those who are active in and around us, in this case being the males, and to, of course, remind them of the responsibility to the community, their fellow men, and the responsibility to themselves as it relates to health and otherwise. I think throughout the world and over the many years, I think men has occupied that position of almost no, I would not use the word supreme, but it's a man's world, as we always, people always use that term. But today I think we've been challenged by the female, and I won't be surprised if it's the female who have put a lot of energy into this event, and I would congratulate them to, I would congratulate them because of a gesture which is well worthwhile, really. Maybe it would inspire the men of this country to do better. It's not like we have been doing bad, but I think recently in areas of educational and academic achievement, I think the ladies have been doing better. Nothing is wrong with that too, but and I always been hearing something about the ladies in an official capacity. Of course, we have Father's Day, but I'm happy that we can find that space within the scheme of things to highlight the contribution of men to this, to our federation, our politics, our social, our economy. And hopefully they did not forget the family, because I think we are under the microscope in that respect, and we probably need to pull up our socks sometimes as it relates to the duty and responsibilities in the home. There's too much probably single mothers out there, and troubled single mothers also, wrestling with what is due from their children father, their baby father. And so it's a good thing, and most importantly to me, I think it provides a time for each and every man to reflect on himself, and to know that maybe going forward they can be chosen to be, a part of the ceremony, and therefore act accordingly and in accordance with, positive social values to really impact and be recognized really in the society. So, kudos to the organizers. It's a good thing. And you say maybe next year it go over to Sinkis. That's also a good thing. And so I would always applaud these initiatives when it can really provide an opportunity for people to reflect on themselves, and for people to celebrate the goodness in others and the goodness in themselves.
Well, I would say that you mentioned about the ladies who were outshining the men regarding academic, as the case might be, but anything you attempt to focus on would be a fruit. And in that regard, the men have become preoccupied as breadwinners. The ladies, of course, recognize that in order for them to become part of the workforce, unless you have the academic talent, academic qualifications, and you've put in the focus on hard work, you would not be gainfully employed in the true sense of the word. So based on what I'm seeing, the women are putting in the work, the focus, the requirements, and hence they are advancing academically more so than the men. But again, the men have a responsibility as breadwinners, and therefore they may not think that it is critically important for them to acquire the higher level of education as women are these days, again, I say the women are fully aware for them to become participants in the workforce, as we would see. Most of the women are into the profession of teaching, and most of the women are in the banking profession, in a sense, in terms of the teller windows. So, and they don't get there unless they are qualified. So, in that regard, men of purpose, men got their work cut out for them, and we've got the opposite sex as a fierce competitor with reference to education and achievement.
Well, I also want to use this opportunity to congratulate our young people. We are focused on our men, but we have also seen the special sitting there in the Federal Parliament to honor our remarkable teens, and again our young people here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis continue to do well, and I think that too continued to be another initiative where we are not only saying to our men, but we are also saying to our young people that you can be a beacon of hope, you can be a bright light in your community, in your church, in your school, in any organization that you find yourselves in. So I too want to congratulate them. I believe that they continue to be another good example to other young people, and continue to recognize that once you put your mind to anything here, you can achieve much. So we also saw that sitting recently to honor the most remarkable teens. Webbo, I also want to say that on Thursday we also we started this initiative at the post office a few years ago, where we issue a stamp in honor of any person who would have turned 100. And last week Thursday we did recognize Miss Leontine Clark there in Chickenstone, who turned 100 in September. And in my interaction with her there at our home last Thursday, at 100 she is still as sharp as a whistle. She basically said to us that, you know, continue to trust in God and continue to put your faith in God, and that is where the longevity is going to come from. So I want to say to Miss Clark, and certainly to her family, continue to take very good care of her. I want to say how thankful I am that the good folks there at the Philatelic Bureau and the Post Office was able to pull this one off again. I know we have had some delays with it, but I want to say to Ms. Clark that we are indeed thankful and grateful to her for the contribution that she has made to the development of Nevis over the many decades. She's a very accomplished pianist, and I believe that many persons on the island of Nevis would have benefited from her creativity in music, and as she would have imparted that talent to her own daughter. And I believe that her example, Webbo, has been one for many others to follow. So congratulations, Ms. Clark. When I look at the stamp, you would not believe that she is someone who is 100. That bright smile, you know, and that attitude of full of life, and giving praise and glory to her Creator to attain the age of 100. I was really happy to be there in her presence, and I believe that she continued to be a good example for many others to pattern their lives after. Webbo.
Mr. Brown, you were not here last week. I got a message for you. But by this week, it would have been too late. So, you know I'm creative, right?
All the time.
Right, so I send the message nonetheless. And I don't know whether it is by coincidence or not. but mission accomplished. And I do this because I like to tell folks, I like to accentuate the positive. So when a person does well, looks nice, and do, you know, a nice deed and stuff like that, I don't mind, and I would ask to be the messenger to carry that out, because I like things like that. The other end of the spectrum I do not like, but somehow people always find me to do it. That is the bad part. To say the road dig up and you need fixing back. That part I really don't like, but when I realize what can come at the end of it by doing it, so that's why I do it. So what I did, I didn't do it last Tuesday night, so I did Wednesday morning, and I have a sort of back channel to you, so I send the message that way. And I know she would get you the message, because for instance, I was listening to the funeral of Mrs. Carter, President Carter's wife, and it told you how powerful she was.
Yes.
With the president.
Yes.
And people must learn these things. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to get to the boss. The secretary just got about just about as much power. So the road at Morning Star, which the water department apparently was fixing, and I don't know who was responsible. I hear Public Works was responsible then to go back and fix it. And then the one down at the bottom of Zion Road, because they were very hazardous in terms of traffic. So I want to congratulate the men at, which is Public Works?
Yeah.
Public Works for doing that. But I keep wondering, though, why is it people sometimes have to curse and argue and thing and so on to get certain things done? You mean to tell me that when things like that happen, the water department don't know it is in a dangerous position to touch base with Public Works, who will understand it is in a difficult position to get it done? Sometimes you get the feeling that if people didn't curse and argue, it might have stayed here for a couple of weeks. So those are things that I just keep thinking and wondering about. So yes, we got it done, but fellas at the department, work with me, you know, do it a little faster, right? And Bran, while you're at it, you can explain how it works, because I was trying to tell someone that I think it's not the water department. I think once the water department digs up the road and fix the pipe, then Public Works is supposed to come along and do the repair. So explain to us how it works.
That is correct, Webbo, but I would say also that, and maybe this may not be a good thing to say, but I'll say it anyway. Sometimes it's deliberate to leave the hole or the patching for a few days. The reason being that we want to make sure that the area is compacted properly. Sometimes if you leave it there for about 2 or 3 days, vehicles would roll over it and it's compacted, and that is the kind of compaction that we want. If we were to dig it up today and we fix it back today, Webbo, most of the time the area is not as compact. So right after that, if you put on the asphalt on it immediately, you're going to see this sink in the road, and that in itself would create even more issues for motoring public. Sometimes we leave it there for a few days, we allow vehicles to roll over it, do the compaction, and then the Public Works Department would go in and deal with it. Also, Webbo, it is not so prudent as well to just turn on an entire asphalt plant just to fix one pothole. The Public Works Department would basically map out a couple areas where they know that they have to go and deal with and mix a certain batch of asphalt to do the patching. So yes, it may be one pothole that may be inconvenience to some people, to the motoring public, and it is an inconvenience at times. But like I said, one, we leave it there for a few days to allow it to be compacted, and two, and not only for it to be compacted, we leave it there as well for the water department to make sure that the fix was actually fixed. Leave it there and you make some observation and make sure that there is actually no leak. And like I said, we don't necessarily mix that small amount of asphalt just to fix one pothole. We'll have to do a larger mix of asphalt to fix a number of potholes. So there's a lot of moving parts in the background, Webbo, and I hope that the general public would appreciate. Yes, I apologize for the inconvenience at times, but it is a necessity. One, to check to make sure that the fix was actually fixed, and two, to allow some compaction of the fill material by the weight of the vehicles rolling over it, and three, we don't necessarily mix that small amount of asphalt just to fix one pothole. We'll identify a number of areas and we'll mix a much larger amount of asphalt to fix numerous potholes and numerous areas.
Well, I suppose you're faced with a lot of that, Minister, and I personally, given the last downpour,
Yes.
I've realized a few areas, but it just can't happen too soon or so soon. It takes time to get around.
Yeah.
To these various places. I honestly see one or two places, but I mean that's the first thing. Obviously, it was a hard downpour. There's a lot of soil dug out. I see areas that need some attention, but I do believe it takes time. It takes time, and I think I'm not here propping up the minister, but to me it's just a logical, something logical that you can understand when these downpours have taken place. Then there's a lot of broken edges and so forth, and I suppose the most important one will be fixed first. Yes, and I do understand the compression that the vehicle does at time to the road. I see that even when you're doing, like I see that over at the bypass road, that has just been done, where there's a time they allow vehicles to press the road, and then they carry on. As I say, I'm not here propping up the minister, but I think I have sufficient knowledge of these little things that I can add some furtherance to what the minister is saying. Really. We must be logical sometimes, and we must afford the time for these things to take place before we of course we got to make our demands, but be logical as it relates to the time aspect of things. All cannot be done at the same time, and there's a lot to do.
Well, I have to join you in not making statements to prop up the minister, but to be quite practical, and based on that nice stretch of road from the roundabout through to bypass at the entrance of Pinnies. It is a nice road, and it is so delightful, so heartwarming, and less stress, honestly, because sometimes when you hit a pothole, it creates some level of mental stress. I do not know if it happens to you or to anyone else, but driving on a nice smooth road is always a fascinating and acceptable measure of competence regarding the completion of that stretch of road. So continue, Mr. Minister, with reference to the repairing, the timely looking at what is necessary with reference to road repairs, road enhancement. Webbo.
Do we have anything else we want to
Well,
put on the table?
Let us. The Prime Minister was in Saudi Arabia, and I hope we are not only going to get the little money to do the desalination plant, because Saudi Arabia is awash with cash. And as a result, we should, as part of the world community, get from those who got, and got plenty. So not only the desalination plant, we need money to do a lot of things. And I hope that the Prime Minister, Dr. Joe, will have gone to Saudi Arabia, rubbed shoulders with those big boys, rich boys, and give them a list. Not that we are begging, but give them a list with the hope that they can assist us in other projects. So many projects in St. Kitts and Nevis to be done. And when I quantify the amount of money in terms of 20 million, that is 0.2 cents, 0.2 cents for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in terms of the money that they got. So we carry our list, we let them know exactly what we need to be financed, and we pound the elbow, and we make sure that we tell them, hey, we will pay you back. It's just not going to happen in terms of getting all your money right away. But they got trillions of dollars sitting in financial institutions, other aspects of managing money, mutual funds, companies here, there, whether it's in Wall Street or in Britain, as the case might be, the FTSE, or even in China. So let us work with a list and ask them to assist us, for which they will be repaid. So I hope that Dr. Joe took not only the list for the desalination plant, but also other lists, education lists, social lists, academic lists. I mean, we need the money, we need the help, and we need it right now. Webbo.
Well, that plant seems to be growing in importance. Maybe Mr. Brand can help me here, because you know the geothermal thing seems to be happening, at least in theory for now. But I was in town this morning, and someone said to me, the geothermal is not going to happen. We don't have sufficient water. Is that true, Mr. Brand? Is that
I disagree. We are 36 square mile and all around us is water. If it means that we have to bring in numerous desalination plants to do what we need to do at the geothermal site, we'll just do it, because it's an important development here for the island of Nevis and for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Our first priority, gentlemen, and listeners, is to make sure that we are at a point where we can have 12 months of the year water for all the people of Nevis. We continue to see the reduction in rainfall. We continue to see that our aquifers are being depleted. Many of them have passed their sell-by date, and we are now embarked on what we are expecting to be a new drilling campaign early in the new year. There has been some challenges because of drought circumstance, and we continue to see that the consumption of water here on the island of Nevis continue to increase. I also want to say to our people that we are, as far as possible, we must try and do as much rain harvesting as possible and conservation as possible, because I believe that that not only would help to reduce the impact on the system itself, but would also save householders some dollars if they were to harvest more of the water that come from their roof and use it to wash their cars, to water their lawn, and so on, and things like that. The geothermal project will consume a significant portion of water for a few months, and we are ensuring that we position ourselves to be able to provide that water to that project once that project actually commences. We have sent out some tenders to, I think, 5 drillers. The deadline is in a couple of days for those drillers to return their bids to the ministry. We will examine those bids, and we are hoping that in the first quarter of next year, we gave them a timeline of February, 1st of February, to be mobilized here on the island of Nevis. So we are doing what we think we need to do to make sure that we have, in the first instance, the amount of water for the island of Nevis, and then we would ensure that the water that is needed by the geothermal development process would also be available. I also think that if it becomes necessary to provide additional water for the geothermal drilling, if we have to go desal, then we'll have to do it. Initially, we are hoping to do 3 wells, and thereafter we are expecting to do an additional. We have site for, I think, about 5 or 6 different drill sites, and in the initial stage we will do 3, and then we will continue thereafter. But to say that we don't have enough water to do the geothermal project, I don't. Like I said, we have ocean all around us, and if we have to if we have to employ the technology of desal to provide the water for the geothermal drilling, we will have to, because this is a vital and critical development here for the island of Nevis, and I would even dare say for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Let me ask you, Mr. Brand, the quantity of water I have seen passing through the gut right at my property, the quantity of water,
Yes.
we get more rain than the island of Nevis can consume. So put another thinking cap on. What measures could we employ to harness or to capture all that water that's going down in my gut? And Nevis has so many tributaries leading to the ocean that I guarantee you the water that passes through those guts is more, far more than we can consume. So I'm asking, is there a possibility of getting storage tanks?
Well, Mr. Stanley, I believe that we have become perhaps victims of our own success. And let me explain what I mean by that. You would very well know, Mr. Stanley, and I would also know, the listeners would know. I'm a child of the 70s. We had to go some distance to catch water. We know that gone are the days when there was cistern in almost every single household throughout the island of Nevis. And there was a time when there were those metal catchment that was elevated a bit above the house to store water. What I mean by victims of our success is that we are not necessarily storing and capturing as much water from rain as we ought to. And it means that we as a people and as a community perhaps have to do a much better job of harvesting more of what we use in terms of our water. Every single gallon of water that is put into the system, with the exception of a very small fraction, comes from wells. And like I said earlier, the wells are they are tired, they are depleting. We have seen global warming where we are seeing reduction in the amount of rainfall. The rainfall that you spoke about, Mr. Stanley, the data is saying that this is almost like a 100-year event, and 100-year events are now happening more frequently. So to see the island receive up to 6 or 8 inches of rainfall in a very short space of time, that is the volume of water that you're talking about, a significant volume of water going down the guts. We just have to do a better job of capturing it. I think that while we continue to explore new sources of water, be it desal, be it new wells, across the various communities and across the various businesses and households, we have to be able to harvest some of those. I know we did a project with disaster management and the integrated water resource management, I think it was last year, a year before, where we would have outfitted many of the schools with these storage tanks, community centers with these storage tanks. And the idea was that there should be clinics and those places. The idea is that they should be able to have access to water at all times. So I think, Mr. Stanley, the answer to your question, to harvest that water that goes down the gut, a lot of that water fell up in the hills. You have to capture it at that level, store it, and I would also think that the individuals, I think, need to begin to appreciate that they too must play a part in ensuring that they can harvest some of this water. And like I said, it will reduce their water consumption bill, and it will also reduce the stress on the system that we now have.
The thing is that I know the government owns land in various places.
Yes.
And if they begin to build silos,
Dams and silos.
silos, you can't, the dam, to dam the water would be minuscule, wouldn't be enough. But that water that comes down in back of my gut, hundreds of millions of gallons, and it's going to the ocean. It's going to the ocean.
Not necessarily all of it. Some of it actually. Some of it seep through the.
We understand that.
Yeah,
we understand that. But when you look at the entrance at the ocean, when God comes down,
the
pure brown, you see.
Brown water. Yes, that is true. Yeah.
Pure brown water. And I'm saying, if the government owns land in the low-lying areas, when that water comes down and we are able to capture it and put it in silo. A silo could be 100 feet per unit, 100 feet in the air, on very little land space. So I'm saying to you, we shouldn't have a water problem in Nevis, because enough water comes from the rain that winds up in the ocean. So back to Saudi Arabia, we go and tell them, look, we need money to build silos to capture the water. They can do desalination plant simply because they're desert. Those lands are built on deserts. So I'm saying, when we go shopping, we walk with our list and we tell them flatly, we have a water consumption problem in Nevis. Not that we don't have the water, is that the water needs a mechanism to capture it. So therefore, lend us the money to build the silos in the river, over at camps. When Fountain Gut comes down, Fountain Gut, that's not that little gut behind me, you know. And I could tell you, based on what I saw the last rain, heavy rain we got, luckily, the water didn't overflow the bank of the gut.
It did slightly.
But I'm saying to you, right behind me, I saw and millions of gallons going into the ocean. I would only be repeating myself. Let's find a way to capture the water, and we will never have a water problem in Nevis.
Well, that's just one gut, you know, Stanley. I guess you know the way of the bad gut, because in the last big rain, I was trying to get home and I realized I can't pass here.
You can't pass.
I had to go back.
Nevis has so many guts, and the thing is,
Yeah, but
the water comes down into the low-lying area because the water falls in the mountain, or the rain falls in the mountain. Sometimes it falls on the plain too at the same time. But the water is going, based on gravity, it's going toward the ocean.
Well, you know,
and I do not know if any of the ocean water seeps back onto the aquifer, which I doubt it.
We have seen some salt intrusions in some of those wells that is close to the ocean. So some of it actually is seeping back.
well, there were times when there isn't much rain, and after a while the water that comes to the plant is salt.
You get
I
that.
experienced that in Hamilton area. But one thing that struck me the last time, because soon after I couldn't get home because Pump Road was running like a gut. The next day I find myself going down to Best Buy to buy water. And that really struck me. I said, I can't believe I couldn't get home because of, you know, the floods. But here am I going down to Best Buy, a supermarket, the next day.
Well, why are you buying water?
Well, not me alone. I'm saying it here because Mr. Brand said, a victim of our own success, and that's to me is a classic example of what is taking place, really, in the minds. And I mean, come on, trust me, very poor people find themselves doing that too. I mean, where's the drum close to the house?
Oh, I don't buy water, but my son, he buys water, bottled water. And there's a cistern in the front of that building in which he lives. Never ran out of water.
Is it being used?
I use it because I
What's in the cistern? Water and what else?
You boil it.
Okay.
You boil it before you drink it. You boil it before you use it. But I am appalled of the number of bottles of water he buys.
People buy water more than anything else.
And based on the The outlet is right there. Luckily, the system is part submerged and part above ground.
Maybe it's cheaper to buy water.
No, it's
Yeah,
laziness.
because you still got to burn gas to boil the water. So there's a time process too.
Listen, listen. I am saying to you, just to step out his door, put a hose to the pipe, and fill whatever it is, carry it inside.
But it's not being done.
Not being done.
And and
And turn on the stove and burn gas.
Boy, the cooking gas costs so little. Costs so little. In terms of what it would take to boil a kettle of water or a gallon of water, as the case might be. So, based on that, I'm saying to you, we have somewhat, well, Mr. Brand made the statement for opening comment. We are a victim of our own success. And based on that, he feels for some reason he's successful. And therefore,
you see,
Let me get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening. I wish to pose a question to Mr. Brand.
sure. If
You're
I-
discussing the water right now,
yes.
but look at the roofs that government are putting up, placing on new houses that are not healthy for drinking of water from them. Why not put on the correct roof?
Well, caller, if you heard me clearly, I did say that water that we can harvest, most of it can go towards watering your lawn, washing.
Yeah, but why get a new house, a new house, and you can't receive the water that falls on the roof? You can't drink it.
Point taken, caller. I won't argue with you with that at all.
I could try to help caller
Yeah.
with the possible reason.
The
Costing.
cost,
If you're doing anything coming from the government, it should be done properly.
Right, but what I was saying was you know the houses that you're speaking about, you know it is not the government who pay for them. You agree with that?
Well, people do that because some of them don't know any better. Yet many persons complain, but
Yeah.
they just want a house.
Yeah, well,
If you want a thing, you seek for something good, or you ask them, "Can I have a galvanized roof?"
right, but what
And the government should know that too.
okay, so what I was saying was that what if the government says to them, for that felt-in roof, it will cost, just hypothetically, $200,000. For the galvanized roof, it will cost $225,000. And they point out, with the galvanized roof, nonetheless, you got other benefits. You can get the water to drink, etc., etc. And then the customer says, give me the felt-in roof.
and those are real numbers, huh?
Yes, but if government would do the correct thing from the beginning, people would sit down and count the cost before stepping into that.
When you say the correct thing, meaning what?
Yeah, having the proper roof on.
No, but
I
what I'm
have
saying...
lived in a country as a schoolgirl, and every house had a cistern, and they didn't have on those kind of corroded roofs. They had galvanized.
Yeah, I get that.
We
I
understand
get the history of where you were living, etc. But I was telling you and trying to give you some information for the question and the concern that you have. You're following me?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay, so I'm saying now in my hypothetical, what if in terms of cost, the customer now says, give me the galvanized or the felt-in roof, then you're saying the government should do what? Tell them, no, you can't have the felt-in roof, you have to take
Well,
the
from
galvanized.
the beginning, the government should have started to build houses with proper roofs.
Proper
yes,
roof
don't
meaning
excuse
what?
this for that.
Galvanized? Proper roof meaning galvanized?
Yes.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the government should not give them a choice?
No, that should have been the procedure.
Okay. I got you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Bye.
Brand.
Well, Webbo, You are correct. Price has always been a deciding factor. Some persons would have opted for the galvanized roof and pay the extra cost for the galvanized. The shingles, yes, they are not necessarily recommended for consumption. The water from the shingle, but as I said earlier, that water can be used for many other things, washing, using in the toilet, washing your car, garden, and so on and so forth. So that in itself would have some impact on your water bill. The color, and as you explained, there is real cost difference when it comes to the shingles versus the galvanized. You said $25,000 difference. I've seen many other variant based on the size of the roof, but I think it's a real cost difference, and many persons, as indicated, are eager to get a house. If we could have done all of those homes with galvanized roof, we would have loved to do it.
Well, I think the discussion is appropriate, knowing that, as I read in the newspaper, next year we will be having an increase rate. Water rates will be increased. I must say that I always thought 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that we pay little or nothing for water. But it seems to be impacting right now. We're kind of feeling it a little more in our pockets.
That we pay little or nothing for water?
No. That's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
That's a thing of the past. I think presently we are paying something which is, as I say, we're feeling it more now than we used to, because of course, the $25 for the garbage and so forth. But I was just making the point that it's an appropriate discussion, because as I read in the newspaper, divisions are to expect an increase in the price of water, the cost of water next year.
We pay $5 for a bottle of water, right? We don't even have a bottle around the place here. We pay $5 for that, and there is not really much resistance to that. We are asked. When I became the minister, we were heavily subsidizing water. It's a public good. It's a resource that is vital for life, but it was heavily subsidized in electricity, heavily subsidized in resources for weirs and things like that. We may not necessarily get to the price where we really want to get to in comparison to our various expenditures, but I think that based on the increases that we have seen over the last year or two, it is absolutely critical for us to take another look at the pricing of our water. A water meter 2 years ago was 40 or 50 US. It is now almost 3 times that. Same water meter, same supply, and that goes across the board. Chemicals to treat our water, the tablets increase, pipes, fittings, and what would have also compounded that is that the creditors are not necessarily giving you a 90-day line of credit anymore. It's almost cash on delivery. So there's a lot of moving parts in the system as to what is adding additional stress and pressure on the system to deliver the water to the general public. We want to make sure that we can strike a balance where we can not necessarily recoup 100% of all of our expenditures, but as close to that as possible, where we can strike a balance, and if we don't necessarily have to be a burden on the system where we subsidize, then that would be a good thing. But it's just that the various expenditures in terms of procuring the various ways for our water department and so on has just increased exponentially. We have constructed, since I've been the minister, we have constructed 2 water tanks, one in Hamilton and one at Pond Hill, 500,000 US per tank. Those tanks we expect to give us some good years out of them. We have one there to construct in Morning Star. So we continue to upgrade the system. We continue to build as much redundancy in the system as we possibly can. But the reality is that we have to continue to explore for new sources of water, and that is going to cost. It is just what we have to deal with, and we will do our very best to try and mitigate the costs as minimal as possible. But it's at a point now where it's almost absolutely necessary.
Well, I go back to the point that there are sources of money, and I look at Saudi Arabia.
We are exploring some of those. Let me tell you, we have reached out to some of those sources. Let me put it that way.
And it caused them, well, if we get a loan with a 1%,
we'll take that.
And they can afford to give us a loan at 1% per annum, because the money is sitting and is not giving them the returns because they have to have a certain amount in reserve. But explore the avenue of the silo concept for storage. Well, you already got the water tanks.
The big blue tanks.
And all we got to do is to, instead of going laterally, we go vertically. The pressure, of course, is there. It's associated with the vertical measurement. But at the same time, I think it is practical. It's very practical.
I wanted to ask a question about sand mining a long time, because what I realize, a major expense in construction, in building a house, is the sand, the price of the sand that we use, which comes from somewhere else. I was wondering, Mr. Brand, if the sand mining policy is appropriate to people in ability to own homes, because I find it's a major expense, and I find we are surrounded by sand. I am not sure how many islands do this regionally, but I know on some islands the government sells sand. They will open up this area, they will take sand from this area and then move to another area and sell sand. But here in Nevis, I find the purchasing of sand is a major expense to that a home builder have to deal with. Isn't that a concern, really? Am I in isolation with this?
No, I wouldn't say, Naya, that is just it is just only sand. We have seen virtually all of the construction materials that is used in construction has increased exponentially over the last few years. Steel, a ton of steel is almost doubled.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
So I understand you. You speak specifically about sand.
Okay.
But I'm saying to you that is just one component of the whole construction industry.
Mm-hmm.
And while while the price of sand would have increased, I am saying to you that every single building materials that is necessary to build have all increased significantly. It's not only sand, cement, steel, lumber, you name it, all have increased. The sand, of course, I guess that you are probably asking
Why don't we
do mining?
Do we have to buy sand?
We have taken a policy on the island not to do sand mining. That has been a policy for a number of years now. There continue to be a hold on that.
That doesn't seem to be a policy in St. Kitts.
Well, what that doesn't sink it, but I think that it has caused construction to increase because of the sand. We now have to import our sand, and we've been doing that for a number of years. But it has been a policy that we have adopted here on the island for.
Yeah, but sometimes I wonder if it cannot be revisited in a sense, because as I say, we are surrounded by sand. I know there are places with mountain piles of sand here in Nevis, and I know in various islands the government sells sand. By opening up this area, sell it to until it's reached to a point, move to another area. I'm wondering if it's not something we are making joke with, in a sense that having people have to buy sand so expensively. I bought the sand the other day. I have to pay like over $1,000. It's like,
Naya, you really think that if we were to do sand mining in Nevis on a large scale, that it would significantly reduce the price of the construction, or you're just speaking about that specific commodity?
Well, it accumulates, Mr. Van. I mean, if sand is expensive, if we could get sand a lot cheaper, then building a home becomes cheaper. I know we don't have control over a lot of other aspects that come together to build a house. But sand, to me, why Nevis? Any other place that imports sand and for construction regionally?
Yeah, there are other. But now, like I said, it was a decision and a policy. Are you therefore suggesting that we should, we need to reconsider the policy?
Yes.
One, and two, we can have sand mining done in different areas at different time of the year.
Is that it's wild?
No, it's not a wild.
That's what happened in St. Vincent and St. Lucia in different places.
Yeah.
But you're laughing.
No, I'm not laughing.
I'm not making sense.
No, I'm not laughing. I'm trying to try and understand your position. Are you saying that we should abandon the sand mining policy or do it periodically? I'm trying to.
Not abandon. I said revisit it. Because to me, it seems a bit odd that we are surrounded by sand, mountain piles of sand in certain areas, but we cannot use sand from Nevis to build. We import our sand from where? Guyana. And sometimes I wonder if somebody have something going on with this sand importation and so forth, which is inappropriate. But I wonder, because I look at the various islands and I don't see much of that taking place in terms of islands importing sand. But we do it here in Nevis, and it contributes to a major expense
now,
in the building of a house.
One of the main reasons why this policy was initiated and implemented was to mitigate against coastal erosion. You would be aware, Naya, that we are affected by hurricanes annually, and you would realize that sometime after a hurricane would have passed, on the coast you see a cliff in the sand, literally. And I think that the idea was to try and mitigate against those coastal erosion, because once you have those kind of coastal erosion, then you can have inland flooding. You have inland flooding, then you can have loss of life, damage to major properties, and those kind of things. There's a lot more that goes into the need, or the idea of banning or not doing sand mining. There's a lot more thing that you have to consider. The major thing is about coastal erosion. And if you have coastal erosion, then you can have a lot of inland flooding. So it is something to, I hear you, but it is something to consider, it's something to think about, it's something to look at. But like I said, we have seen the impact that we have had from even a little tropical storm taking away the sand and causing the damage to our coastline and so on. So those are the kind of things that we are concerned about. But I hear you, Naya. It's something to consider. And I think that we have, in my mind, one of the best grade of sand for construction. It is very fine. It does not necessarily have the kind of shell and coral inside of it. It's almost like powder. So it's a very good material. But something to consider. I hear you.
Well, when I came here, I recognized that sand was free. All you needed to do was to get a truck. And I got certain amount.
You still have some stockpile? I know.
And the grades, there are different grades depending on where
You take the sand.
you get, so based on where we are in this sand mining, I am opposed to sand mining simply because I'll say no more.
All I'm thinking about is people, being able to afford a home. And to me, sand as one of
30% of construction cost.
No, Stanley, that's way too high. That
Well,
number is not.
I think that is one of the areas we can do better with. But I mean, to buy 6 yards of sand, you got to pay $1,100. I mean, and that can't even run a few blocks. It's like, right away you're starting with an expense which you wonder if that cannot be alleviated by government policy as it relates to sand mining. The island is surrounded by sand. I do not understand why we have to buy sand. I mean, this is something distant away from the people's mining countries like St. Lucia, same things. Most islands. Why Nevis? Why Nevis? I don't. I would like. I understand the sand mining and the erosion of coastline. Every island suffer from that. But to me, it is something that it need to be revisited as far as I check. There's something wrong with it. I mean, some people probably have not even applied their mind to it because it's like, okay, that's the case. Stanley said when he comes, sand was free. Sand no free now at all, let me tell you. You could get locked up for going down on the beach and taking up a couple of buckets of sand. Sometimes I find myself wondering, am I stealing sand? I'm here taking up, a couple of buckets of sand and putting them in my truck. But sand is too expensive, and we are surrounded by sand. So I think it is one of the ways that government can make it cheaper, less expensive for poor people to build a house.
No, I hear you. I hear the passion in your argument, but I would say to you as well that the main reason was to try and mitigate against our coastal destruction.
Okay.
It's a trade-off. It was an environmental concern.
Okay.
If I'm sure that the government can wake up tomorrow and say, go and take up all the sand that you want off the
No,
beach,
I
and
don't
then
expect that.
and then we have.
I do not expect that. That's
well,
what I say.
no problem.
It will
Yeah.
be monitored. It will be.
So it's
No,
a.
it wouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. We know people would go where it's most convenient for them and cause a problem. But if government control the sale of sand, they would sell from a certain region. When it's almost depleted or whatever they get that for, move to another region and so forth. And that's, to me, easy going. Government make the money.
Look,
Government makes the money.
it is
Good
different.
evening. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo.
Yes.
What are we discussing, right? I want to ask Mr. Brand a question. Mr. Brand,
Yes, sir.
how long has the policy, the sand mining policy, been in place?
I don't know the exact period. I can say to you that I know that it was a cause of one Ken Evelyn and his team. So I can't give you an exact time frame.
Okay, let's say the last 30 years.
30?
Yeah.
No,
No.
I don't think it's that long.
Mr. Brand,
Yeah.
you know how long the government started importing sand and then they drop it onto the private sector? The government has been importing sand for a long time.
It's been 30 years?
Yes.
I think, by way of information, the caller is probably, if he is not exactly right, he's roundabout. I think about 25, 30 years. But
Yeah.
if that is not, so relevant.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yes.
roughly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so my question is, why are we still seeing this magnitude of erosion? I mean, is it serving a purpose? I really don't know. St. Kitts mine sand all the time. Different people, different countries mine sand, and the sand that we are buying is from a country that's mining sand. So it looks like we're wrapping circles around ourselves. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we have to find out sand.
Caller, if I stand to be corrected, but I believe that most of the sand that we import into Nevis are river sand, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe that that is what we import. You said that we are still seeing erosion around the coast, and you are absolutely correct, and that is because, caller, of the continuous wave action. And I would say to you that if we were to be doing the kind of sand mining that we would like to do, then we would have even been seeing a much greater coastal erosion.
Okay, Mr. Brand, let me
Yes.
throw this into the mix. If you leave Long Point going south to Indian Castle,
Yes.
you don't know, I could tell you the amount of erosion that happened in that area.
I am aware of it.
There is a the coast. I hear the premier and the minister that they're thinking about doing the putting in. Putting in because that road is in the sea. A good portion of that road is in the sea and out to sea,
Yes.
because there's an area just past the lighthouse now that's called Green Bay Bridge. Green Bay Bridge is no more. Where Green Bay Bridge was, is right out to sea now. And this is, I mean, to do that road, you have to go through people's land. You have to put in a completely new road. And while all that is going on, Indian Castle keep going out and sand keep coming in. But the other side of the island, you get erosion. So that is something we have to pay attention to.
Yes.
One side you get erosion, the other side you get build up.
Yeah, that is because of the different wave action in
The
different
wave
areas
action,
of
yes.
the island. Yeah.
So couldn't we monopolize listen, in life we'll have challenges in it, how you deal with them. Where the sand come in, you use the sand. You're losing land anyway. But Indian Castle, the sand keep coming in, sand keep building up. I know when we used to take sand from Indian Castle, as we take the sand just come back, replenish itself. That is something we probably should pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I got a few loads from Indian Castle.
Recently?
No. What I got is about 30 years old.
Oh.
Before the ban went into effect. So, the idea of the Indian Castle area, and the caller is correct, the area is replenishing itself, while the other areas. But Four Seasons did some dredging, and they actually replenished their beach.
Yes.
How does that impact on the further north of Four Seasons? What visible impact that you are aware of? Because based on the quantity of dredging by Four Seasons, the big barge that they usually use for the dredging and the transporting. So have you been able to quantify the amount of erosion that occurs going northward of the Four Seasons Hotel, Four Seasons Beach, or even Paradise Beach?
It's actually massive.
Well,
It's massive in the area.
what would have occurred, and you would have had an increase in the depth of the water in those areas. So there would have been some slight change in the depth.
Because of the dredging?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we understand that.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing?
Sure, to dredge and to get a greater depth. It means that the tourist boats that have a deeper draw
Okay.
is good for them.
And further north is eroding because they used to have a place further north called Sandala and all those places, and they're for the way out to sea.
Yeah, that's the coastal erosion.
Yeah, coastal erosion. No, I just thought it's something to think about, and don't just leave it there when it can impact on some people's life in a positive way, making it easier for them to build homes and so forth. We are very unique in that respect, having to import and buy sand. And but I didn't know if the government started it. Very interesting.
Well, all the numbers of non-nationals who built homes.
Good evening, you're on the air. Good evening, Webbo again. In answer to Mr. Stanley's question, is one of the effects of that dredging. I think there are two significant periods of dredging for Four Seasons, the beach of Four Seasons, and I remember hearing that going further north to as far as Wally, they were experiencing a higher level of silting in the beach. When they dredge, they get silt going north. So I mean, I really don't know the effects of that, but that's one of the complaints that I heard.
What's silting? What is that?
When they dredge, the fines doesn't go with the pump. It drifts north.
Some goes the other direction.
Okay.
And yeah, I think they said that it kills some of the sea life going north.
It can.
Some negative effect on
Can.
the sea life going north. That was just that was just something I heard. I don't know how true it is or what anything. I just saying what I heard. And it was from some folks who had a property in that area. So I don't know. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Well, is there any word about the double salary at this point in time?
He sits in cabinet.
I have no information on that.
On the double salary.
Well, I am of the view that government employees, some are deserving of a double salary, and some, most definitely, those who do not give the attention and the impeccable service that the public needs. Those who don't shouldn't be entitled to it at the same time. You cannot discriminate with a public policy, a government policy, with reference to discrimination. So it has to be across the board if and when they decide to pay a double salary. And we know as to the real reason why a double salary is paid. It is to keep the lines of communication open with reference to the 4-year or 5-year term of the voter going back to the polls. So in that regard, the government has to continue to do that double salary thing, and as a result they will benefit. The elected representatives would benefit depending on who is at the reins of government and those who are not. So a double salary, and it trickles back right into the economy. Don't kid yourself. So more money a person has in his pocket, the rich people are not going to spend it right away. They're going to find some other way of holding it. But the government employees will readily go out and spend it simply because they can't afford to have that length of time without money in their pockets. So it does have a positive effect on the economy. We may not have the statistics to bear that out, but the numbers are somewhere. The numbers are somewhere. A double salary is in the making.
You know, the ill-conceived doctrine that if a government does not pay double salary, they would lose the election, need to be set aside. Okay, because I think there can be various circumstances within a country, within the economy, or forecast that double salary could be problematic. And so that doctrine that if you don't pay, if a government doesn't pay a double salary, they're going to lose the election, it needs to be set aside. It is an irresponsible doctrine to live up to, as far as I check. And I believe in these days we are seeing it being seriously questioned. Okay, and I think for those who is in position and are willing to really set that doctrine aside, they, to me, are the ones who are thinking in a wide sense that there could be any circumstance that payment of a double salary can be problematic. And to me, if he's going to put a government back against the wall, or put the people of a country back against, that they must exist without certain, not necessities, but amenities, because of that idea that a double salary must be paid in order to stay in power. I find those are the most sensible people in this discussion. I've heard it all around town, and I want to support those who have looked at it in a serious way and have expressed that it can be problematic because of probably the forecast or probably the current situation. I will refer to it as an inconceived doctrine because it should not be continued based on simply voters and voting and what can happen in an election. I think that should be paid more on a basis of appropriateness. Am I making sense here?
Well, what I'm saying, we look at the voters list. In an election, you got 48-52, one side or the other. If 48% of the people are compensated and you leave 52% out, we're away. But it's across the board, and there is no guarantee that you're going to win an election because you were at the helm of government, reins of government.
We see what happen all the time.
But at the same time, simply because it has been paid, it came to the people who are living here, spending here, and the trickle-down effect regarding it goes back into the economy, helps the economy. The government can't lose. The opposition can't lose. So in my view, it's a raise of salary.
Mr. Stanley, I have said here before that if it is that the government choose to pay a double salary, once it's not a burden on the country, yes, many persons are going to benefit. And you spoke about the quote-unquote trickle-down effect, revolving door kind of mechanism. I have also said here, Mr. Sani, that I would prefer that with all of the increase in the cost of living, cost of energy, the cost of healthcare, the cost of you name it, that perhaps that money may be better utilized by increasing person's salary. The double salary is going to have what I call perhaps a short-term impact. You get a double salary and then you may be able to purchase a couple things that you wanted to buy, you might put some save, all kind of things like that. But I believe that if you were to consider seriously and increase person's salary, then I think that would have a greater, you will get greater value for that over short, medium, and long term. Because I think that once people have a consistent access to greater financing, then their circumstance become better. If you give them that greater access to a certain quantum of monies for a short period of time, then like I said, I think it's something to really look at. I believe that over the years, Mr. Stanley speak about government can't lose. I disagree. Former government may have given 5 or 6.
Many governments.
Let's look at the former government in particular. The former government would have given at least 4 or 5 double salaries in their 6 or 7 years, and they have lost the government. So it is a tool that I feel that can be.
You're talking about the federal government?
Yeah, it's a tool that I think that can be reworked differently. I would like to have seen it work differently. That quantum of money can be added on to persons who are, and they get a longer term benefit. That is how I look at it, and I think that you would have that greater stimulus in the economy for a much longer period of time. It's going to be a one-time shock for a few weeks or a month or so, and then persons fall back in their original circumstance. I think that increase in salary would be of greater benefit for many persons.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mr. Ban, on that particular note. But to me, Dr. Jew have already discovered an appropriate way that seems workable, where the money is not just going to government workers, but he have dish it out, through the Social Security scheme there, via the Social Security scheme, and it reaches more people. I think that you would expect the more impact in terms of money circulating within the economy.
Well, Naya, not to cut you off, but yes, that approach covers a wider cross spectrum of the population.
Yes.
But my argument is, while that is a good gesture, that again, in my mind, have a one-time impact. I am saying my philosophy and my thinking is that if you can increase person's salary to a level where they can be in a much better position all year round, then I think that the country would be in a much better position, rather than if you were to do it one time of the year, Christmas or Independence. All of that is good. It creates some good feeling in the country. But like I said, after a week or two, people fall right back in their circumstances as they were before, and I think that is what we need to try and avoid, and try and uplift people's circumstance rather than give them this one time, as it were, high, and then
in a more permanent.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
Well, you brought up the reason of the former federal government, giving people double salaries for maybe 5 times, as the case might be, and still lost the election.
I know that they had different circumstances. They had mitigating circumstances.
Right.
So let me put that in, because I believe that's where you were going.
Right. Well, because you see,
The government been changing all the time from 1983.
they shot themselves in the foot. So, based on how the dynamics worked, they lost government as a result of their shooting themselves in the foot.
Not the double salary.
No, has nothing to do. The double salary could have come. As a matter of fact, it came. The people took it. But for whatever reason, this particular circumstance came about, or dynamic, which caused them to have lost government. Nah.
I understand exactly what Mr. Brand said, and I must say I agree with him. You know, he's talking about a more, I wouldn't say everlasting, but more permanent impact by. But also he's talking about government workers.
I think it is just as wide as it's broad.
Maybe they're working for sufficient money, Mr. Brand. Maybe not. Of course, if they are, then maybe they shouldn't get an increase. But in terms of putting money in the economy, in circulation, I believe in having a more widespread recipient of some monetary advantage. And I think Dr. Joe has appropriately gestured with that. It's quite a socialist approach, and I like that too. And he probably can do this every quarter, or maybe not. But basically, basically
every quarter. You think that's sustainable?
I'm not sure.
Well,
I'm not sure. But basically, what I'm saying is, I'm in the private sector, and sometimes the private sector doesn't reap much of an advantage, and we find that we have to pay the taxes like everyone else. Don't talk about the business license that we have to pay, but I'm not arguing about it. The penalties for not paying the business license is exorbitant, $100 a day, and
it's a deterrent.
It's a deterrent, but it is also a reality in a sense that if it that's the consequence, and you bear the consequence if you does not meet the deadline. It is a deterrent, but it's also a deterrent from getting into business, being an entrepreneur. Do you know that? It seems to me something, and the way government is run, everybody want to work for government. Whereas I think government is already too big here in the Federation, and I believe there should be emphasis and maybe policies that encourages the private sector and people going into the private sector as opposed to otherwise. Maybe you have to do something with election as well, but I want to see more gestures that encourages people to go into the private sector, to be entrepreneurs, so forth, so fifth. I think the gestures we are seeing, and the gesture that is usually practiced, is opposite. They're encouraging people to go work for government. Am I not right?
Let me get this break and then come back.
76,000 square feet of flat ocean view land is up for sale. It is located on the Bay Road at Douglas Estate, Nevis. For more information or for serious inquiries, call Mr. Edric Stanley at Stanley's Real Estate at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
You're listening to Vaughn Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts, Nevis.
I disagree with you because I think that the government offers numerous concessions on anyone who wants to get involved in business. You have concession on corporate tax. You have concession on materials and vehicles, equipment, and so on. That is, and let me put a caveat here: when I say vehicles, appropriate vehicles for the business that you are getting into, because you can't tell me that you a fisherman and asking for a concession on perhaps a motorbike to do your fishing.
Mr. Brand, that refers to the private sector only?
No. It's across the board.
Work with me.
Yes.
So if you have a government department executing certain duties, you will make the same argument. You can't
executing certain duties. Yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying to you that there are opportunities for individuals to get involved in business. We have the reduction in VAT for a period of time. While I understand that there seems to be for some reason an attraction for persons to want to go to work for government, and that is something I still can't understand why, because I think that there are opportunities for anyone who wants to get involved in business. There is the avenue of the concession and the reduction and so on and so forth. So I don't want to give the impression that there is no opportunity for persons to be considered for these kind of concessions, small, medium or large, any kind of business.
Good.
With the mentality or mindset in this new generation, they want to work for government. I never wanted to work for government, simply because I came up and I actually...
let me just get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert, and good evening to your panelists.
Good evening.
Yeah, especially this question might be for Mr. Brand. Since you are a member of government, has the government ever given any specific reason why they give double salary? Because remember, this is public funds, and all I'm hearing double salary, but I can't recall any time when the government gave a specific reason why they give double salary.
You want me to answer, caller?
Yes.
Well, I have heard that the economy have done well and the civil servants deserve it. There have been some reason given in the past.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, this is what I'm thinking, because I myself, I have a small company and I do business too. And if I have my employees and in a particular year, I don't see that you have to give something every year, but if it's in a particular year, when I balance out my books, I realize that, my employees really did well this year and there's a certain surplus. Well, I might want to go ahead and say, well, I'll give them something extra, whether you call it a double salary or whatever. But that is based on how they perform. And also, when I look at my expenditure and what I brought in and so on and balance my book, I realize I made a good, decent profit that particular year. But I find it seems like that there is something now where almost every year you just hear about this double salary, even though in between January and December you would hear the government say time to time that finances are hard and there are certain projects that they would like to do, and I'm talking about important projects. But monies are not there right now. But it seems as though comes December, regardless, the idea of double salary still prevails. And many people are saying that it is all political. I don't know whether that is so. But that's what many people are saying, because how is it that you can say in the media, in between there, that, well, finances are hard, but comes December, double salary. Another thing, the monies that the government are paying out, these are public funds where all the people in the country pay taxes into the government coffers. And it's only a certain section of the country that benefits from this double salary from the government. I can't understand that. Now, Mr. Brand, you were saying that you would rather a more spread out across the board in terms of possibly then, rather than giving the double salary, to raise salary. But I'm going to tell you that in itself may create a problem as well, because if the government raise salary, it also means that the private sector, the employees, are going to be looking for their salaries to be increased too.
Which way you want it to go? Go ahead.
Right? And in that regard, right, you may find that some small business people have to go out of business. So you go ahead.
Cora, my argument is that the short-term impact of a double salary, it feel good for a couple of weeks. You get double salary, you do something, and so on and so forth. And
Mr. Brown, you is in agreement with that.
Oh, fine, I understand that.
Yes.
But my argument is that to really allow people to have greater disposable income,
yes,
I am convinced, Carla, that the way in which you do that is to look at the salary of individuals across the board. You say that it may have an impact on some persons, and some person may go out of business.
Yeah.
That is a possibility, but I also believe that it could also create greater opportunity for those same business to expand their service base and expand their product. So it's a at times it can be a double-edged sword, but my position is, and I've been looking at it from the point of trying to allow a sustainable income for the general population, rather than a periodic intermittent shock to the system, and then many persons fall back to where they were last week.
Yeah, Mr. Brand, you is in agreement with that also. My concern is that, well, I'm looking before you decide to give the double salary. Why? That's what I'm saying, because if the turnover wasn't very good in a particular year, I don't understand the double salary. So that's what I'm saying. I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. You're going to say that, well, things went well a particular this year, and so on, and so the double salary. And you're saying you would prefer, in that case, then possibly increase the salaries. I agree with you if that is the case. But I'm talking about, what about the times when the turnover wasn't so good, and the idea is still that, this double salary, that is my concern.
Well, Carla, if the turnover wasn't so good, and the country did not do as well as it would have liked, then I believe that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are reasonable and rational people, and I think that they would understand that because the economy did not do as well as we would have liked, they may not make too much of noise if it does not get a double salary in a particular
Okay,
year.
we gotta leave it.
Hear it at the street, but anyhow,
Yeah, we gotta leave it
I'll
there.
leave it there for now. But that's not what I'm hearing at the street.
76,000 square feet of flat ocean view land is up for sale. It is located on the Bay Road at Douglas Estate, Nevis. For more information or for serious inquiries, call Mr. Edric Stanley at Stanley's Real Estate at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
So, who's got the last word?
The double salary, in my view, is apropos, simply because psychologically it does make everybody feels good, government employees. So I am for the double salary. Webbo.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock, following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.